Way. Yes. Connor Rogers, for the love of God.
Roto World Player News. For all your Roto World Player News, go to NBCSports.com, of course. And here's the notable Week 5 injuries. Listen.
This is why you're a professional host, because I skipped over the injuries.
Yes.
I want to go right.
The one thing you were so passionate about in our pre-production meeting.
I know. Well, listen, and then Stupid Steven showed.
There he goes.
Stupid Steven D'Agostino showed, Puka Nacua scoring a touchdown, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to the LA game first.
Yes.
I guess he didn't want to roll video of. Anthony Richardson getting his AC joint sprained, exactly. Unfortunately.
Listen, we are going to cover all of the big-time injuries throughout the show while we go in-depth on the games. Anthony Richardson, yes, the AC joint injury. Daniel Jones, a neck injury similar to what he had 2 years ago. James Conner hurts his knee. Justin Jefferson with a hamstring. And Travis Kelce, although he came back with the ankle. We will get into all of these. But with that, let's jump right into the Eagles.
Also, Zay Jones, I was going to say, in terms of smaller injuries. Zay Jones left the game as well. Tank Dell got a concussion. There's some smaller names as well.
Sneaky one that I didn't even realize. Devon Achane came out of the game. Little ankle sprain as well. Just want to monitor.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, plenty to go around.
With only one ankle, he might only run for 120 yards.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, right?
And one touchdown.
Right, we'd have to lower expectations for Achane on just one ankle.
Well, in positive injury news front, Cooper Kupp was back, and Cooper Kupp looked exactly like the Cooper Kupp we know and love. Catches 8 of 12 targets, 118 yards. But in even better news, Matthew, Puka Nacua doesn't go away.
Yeah, what is it? Puka Nacua means no worries.
That's
right.
Or a lot of people have said.
Hakuna Nacua. I think that maybe that's better. Hakuna Nacua. It means no worries, especially when you've got both these guys in your lineup. We said on fantasy football pre-game, we said all last week, both guys are top 20 wide receivers. Both guys can be started. Both guys absolutely were. Both with double-digit targets. Both with an over 30% target share. Both with at least 7 receptions. Puka gets the touchdown. Kupp gets over 110 receiving yards, 118 in fact. I don't know that there's anything other than to say, like, if you have one or both these guys on your team, enjoy. They play the Cardinals next, then they're home to the Steelers. They're at Dallas. Okay, not a great matchup, although the Cowboys certainly looked vulnerable after last night. And then they're at Green Bay. But 3 of the next 4 are ones that you aren't worried about at all. And even the Dallas game, they're so good at scheming these guys open that I think it's really miraculous. Hopefully you didn't, quote-unquote, sell high on Puka because Kupp was coming back. I think this is completely legitimate, guys.
Yep, I agree. And to me, the biggest stat out of this game is that Puka Nacua had 11 targets, and the Rams only had the ball for 22 minutes. They just couldn't get off the field. It must be so demoralizing playing the Eagles, because once you get into 3rd and short, it's just over. Eagles converted 13 of 18 third downs. The brotherly shove was working to perfection. But Puka Nacua, 11 targets, 7 for 71 on a touchdown.
This. You mentioned the brotherly shove. I brought this up on Twitter.
Is this the Reggie Bush thing?
The X. Yeah, the Bush push. Yeah. I called it the Bush push, and everyone's just like, Matthew, I was saying something dirty. And make no mistake here, people.
I saw that as well.
Yeah, make no mistake here, people. I have no problem saying dirty things.
Right.
I think this show is evidence as well. It's the fact that
I wanted to land.
I left Disney, you know what I mean? Just so I could, live my own free life. But I'm just saying, that was not intended to be dirty at all. Were you guys confused by that? Because it's again, it started with a Reggie Bush pushing at Leinart in the USC game. It was
legendary,
the Bush push, and everyone was just like, what's a Bush push? I'm like, that's what it's called. And they're like, oh, maybe it's the tush push or the brotherly shove. Screw the brotherly shove.
I think we need to differentiate the way the Eagles do it from the way the Giants do it, though, because they're completely different plays. Because one time it works every single time, and then the other time you injure 2 of your offensive linemen and you don't get the first down anyway.
No, I will say, it is seeing we've seen Baker Mayfield try it. We've seen, Josh Dobbs. We've seen a lot of other quarterbacks try it. No one is as good at it as the Eagles are with Jalen Hurts. It's really, they may have to make a rule in the NFL just because it is so effective for them.
I reckon they start doing it every play. Just do it every play. You get 3 yards every single play. You got 4 chances.
Football back to 1944.
Exactly. Let's do it.
100%.
There's no way anyone stops that.
That just tells me your following might be made up of 13-year-olds, though. That's kind of what I got to take.
You know what?
Which is very shocking.
You'd be amazed. Because I will tell you this. This is a true story. My wife is always constantly amazed. Is that when I'm out in public and that I get it's a lot of times it is college kids, it's high school kids. younger kids. Like I also get the olders, you know,
the Adam Thielens.
The Adam Thielens.
There it is.
The Adam Thielens come to the world. Yeah, come up and say hi.
I saw him come up to you in Arizona
as well. But no, and also my wife is consistently amazed at the youth of my fan base. So, which I am as well.
Just look at Connor
Yeah, exactly. Look at us here.
I mean, look, welcome. Yeah, my children over here. But yes, so yeah, not just in real life, but also on social media. Puka Nacua played 100% of the snaps, guys, and 95% of the snaps for Cooper Kupp in his first game back. Both guys locked in as top 20 fantasy wide receivers moving forward. And the only issue on the Eagles, as good as the Eagles is moving on, Jalen Hurts had a Jalen Hurts type game. It was great to see the rushing over 70 yards. Props to Lawrence Jackson, who that was one of his best bets, I believe, on pregame, wasn't it? The Jalen Hurts rushing alternate line.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Correct.
The
yeah,
alt line.
50 plus.
He had 50 plus on the alt line.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So shout out to Lawrence Jackson. Great call. Our pickup line segment continues to crush. Both you and Lawrence's bets hit yesterday. The only concern here is Devonta Smith, guys. Jay, this was not good.
It wasn't good. And you just think that he's the type of player who's at a level where he can't have these games. He's too good to be 1 for 6.
Not where he was drafted.
The sneaky thing is
he's wide receiver 92 as we head into Monday Night Football.
That's not great.
Like outside the top 90.
The sneaky thing is that A.J. Brown is 4th in the league in receiving yards. Remember when the concern was about A.J. Brown and him not having a great start to the season? He's been a monster the past couple of weeks. And I do think just with the amount that they run the ball, it clearly looks like A.J. Brown is 1 and Devonta Smith is 2. And then if there are going to be games where Dallas Goedert does what he does, then there's just not enough passing to go around.
He's had under 50 receiving yards in 3 of 5 games this season, below a 15% target share in 2 of the last 3 games. 3 games already with 5 or fewer targets. He only had 4 of those such games last year. Look, Dallas Goedert went off in this game as well, so I'm not ready to hit the panic button just yet. He's too good, and this offense is too good, and we've seen it successful. But it does feel like you've got 3 alphas in Smith, Brown, and Goedert, and one of them is going to be the odd man out in every game. There's just not enough passing volume in this game, in this offense to go around, and it feels like more often than not, Smith is out. To me, I'm not, quote, selling low because I don't think you're going to be able – I mean, again, he's wide receiver 92 this week, right? He's had, again, under 50 receiving yards in 3 of 5 games this season. They play the Jets next week, which also you don't love. They're on the road at the Jets. But I guess what I would say is like I'm not selling low. I think your best bet here is just to sort of stay put because you're not going to get the potential value out of him, and I do think better days are ahead. They have to be. He's too good, and they're too good.
Agreed.
Let's jump into Bengals-Cardinals here, and Jamar Chase. We heard him last week. We've seen the frustration, but after this game where he catches 15 and 19 targets for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns, a different Jamar Chase. Let's look at Week 4 Chase versus Week 5 Chase.
In 4 games this season, do you feel like you've had less time to get open and create space for yourself?
Nah, I'm open. I'm always open. Excuse my profanity. I'm sorry. 7-11. That's all I got to say, brother.
You heard the man.
Yeah.
7-11.
He's always open.
He even posted
a
7-11 in honor of him being always open.
Let's get my guy an endorsement deal. Come on now. Where we going? Listen, and to be clear, it doesn't have to be 7-Eleven. It could be 24-hour fitness.
There you go.
There you go. Right? There's a lot of different, it could
diner?
be IHOP.
Denny's.
Yes,
there
how
you
about
go.
where's Denny's? I'm just saying, there's a lot of businesses
options here.
Right, how about an airport? I'm just saying there's a lot of different places that are open 24 hours.
Jamar Chase, brought to you by LaGuardia Airport.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah. Listen, he is always open. I'm representing ProudFantasyLife.com investor, by the way, Jamar Chase. Monster game here. I don't know that there's anything really to say. 32% target share, by the way, in 3 straight games. Again, we expected a massive target share with no T. Higgins here, and it was obviously a very good matchup. But look at their upcoming schedule. Seattle, bye. At San Francisco, you don't love that. Home to Buffalo, home to Houston. So next week against Seattle should be good. He's always He's always open. There's not really anything to talk about here other than just, listen, hopefully you were patient with Jamar Chase, and it paid off because he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and one of the best wide receivers in fantasy, and he won you your week this week.
Yep. Second in the league in targets, second in receptions, both as prophesized preseason, second to Puka Nacua in both of those categories. I think the biggest...
Is that me or Jamar Chase? Oh, that is Jamar Chase. Okay, I can confirm. Sorry, I thought this might have been my high school footage for a second, but nope.
Boy.
Nope, this is actually Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow looked good, Connor.
He looked healthy. That's the most important thing. Looked a little more spry in this game on the calf.
To me, the most important play of this game, randomly, Joe Burrow had a 10-yard scramble where he was running properly.
Yes.
There was no limp, nothing. They needed the first down signal afterwards. He was back. He just looks healthy. What he got into that throw, that deep one to Chase, he looks like he's 100% now.
He's now had 40 or more pass attempts in 3 of the last 4 games. The concerns that maybe they would go more run-heavy given the calf injury hasn't proved itself. It hasn't been pretty, obviously, up until this game, but it's nice to see Joe Burrow doing Joe Burrow type things. So
still unsure what the hell happened in that Tennessee game. I still don't understand how he scored 3 points.
It's super weird, obviously, as well. But yeah, I mean, Bengals are back, baby. The Bengals are back.
One note.
By the way, also, I just want to mention this too, just real quickly while we're just talking about this game. Incredibly frustrating if you have Joe Mixon on your team. Like, they gave him the ball on the 1-yard line
25
3
carries.
different times, and he couldn't get into the end zone. It's from 1 yard out, you're like, just fall in, just fall into the end zone, and they couldn't. I got a feeling he'll be highlighting Ian Harditz's sheesh report this week. But anyway, very upsetting.
One note for Arizona in this game, we said it at the notable injuries at the top. James Conner gets hurt with the knee injury. His head coach, Jonathan Gannon, said after the game he's feeling okay. On that long run, he might have gotten his foot stuck in the ground. So it was a first-half injury. He did not return to the game. We'll keep an eye on James Conner's status throughout the week.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more tomorrow as we get more updates on James Conner. Amari DiMiccardo played 100% of the snaps following James Conner's injury. By the way, shout out to Michael Smith. This is the kind of player that Michael Smith loves on Fantasy Football Pregame. He talks about all these
Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah, exactly. But Keontae Ingram has normally been the backup, but he's been inactive the last 2 weeks. They've used Rondell Moore in the backfield a little bit. I've seen other people, Evan Silva being one of them, suggest that Rondell Moore could be Austin Eckler-ish. Could you see that, or is he too small to be an NFL running back, Rondell Moore?
You're not going to run him like that. But when you look at what he did at Purdue, he was so effective with the ball in his hands, and that's what they tried to do with him as a wide receiver. Everything was behind the line of scrimmage. So I think there's creative ways to get him pitches and dump passes in the flats. Running between the tackles, he's pound for pound one of the strongest players in the league.
They've legit used him in the backfield the last 2 weeks, handing the ball off to him. Right? I mean,
I think
as
it's a better
running
fit
back
than wide receiver for him. I just wonder what the volume ceiling is.
Yeah.
I guess it's my best
they're 1-4. Letlet's get weird in Arizona. Why not? Just try it. Try Rondell Moore at running back.
I've dated some girls from Arizona. They're not scared to get weird in that state. I'm just gonna let you know that. I'm just gonna let you know that.
Oh man, they do call Tempe the Miami of the desert.
Listen,
all right, I guess we can go to Tennessee.
If you're young, I'll just say this: if you're young and single, get yourself to Arizona.
There you go.
All right, look.
Tough segue to
it'll probably be more of a committee. Is my guess is that if Connor were to miss some time.
Okay.
All right, Titans, Colts. Listen, Jonathan Taylor gets the big extension. Everybody celebrates. Everyone's happy. Matthew, you kind of warned everybody throughout the week. Let's temper expectations and don't cut Zach Moss. Don't move on from Zach Moss. And Zach Moss, a smooth 23 carries for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also added in 2 catches for 30 yards in this game.
Yeah, did they give the right man $26.5 million guaranteed? Because Zach Moss looked like the better running back out there. To be fair, first game back for JT, we expected that there would be rust, there would be a pitch count, and so it was. But, I mean, Zach Moss is just playing so well. I mean, here's the thing, is that if Jonathan Taylor wasn't back, Zach Moss would be in the running to win the rushing title. Like, he's been that kind of player so far, and I think he has played so well that they're just going to have to keep on giving him carries, even as JT gets back up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, we knew he would be on a snap count. I think what we said on pregame is ideally you're not doing anything with Jonathan Taylor, that it's a tough matchup. Not for Zach Moss, but it was a tough matchup, and we expected a limited workload. He ultimately ends up playing only 10 snaps. I think part of that is because it was his first game back, and part of it because Zach Moss was running hot.
Yeah.
Give credit where credit's due.
How weird it is that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase couldn't do anything against the Titans secondary, but Zach Moss can gash them on the ground against the best run defense in football for 23 for 165.
It is this league, right? Any given Sunday. What will be interesting, though, is I think two things. Number one is right. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's production is going to increase as the weeks go on. But Zach Moss has played well enough that he's not going to be completely disappeared. I don't think Jonathan Taylor, as weird as this sounds, I know he just got paid, and I know he's awesome, and we love him. He's a friend of the podcast. He's been on this show. But as weird as it sounds, I don't think Jonathan Taylor gets Zach Moss's workload, guys. Zach Moss has run too good. I think ultimately it's probably 65-35, 70-30, Jonathan Taylor to Zach Moss, but Zach Moss is going to play enough that I think it's going to be annoying to the people that have Jonathan Taylor on their team. One thing that is a positive, to the extent that any such injury is, and we'll talk about Anthony Richardson here in a second, but he left this game with an injury. We're going to update that in a minute. But Gardner Minshew, obviously, it looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback here for a little bit. In the 3 games in which Gardner Minshew has played, the Colts have averaged 30 or more running back rushes a game. So my expectation here is that, without Anthony Richardson, this is a team that wants to run, and so and Gardner Minshew's mobile, but he ain't Anthony Richardson. Right. So I think you will see enough volume, basically. Jonathan Taylor, ultimately, when fully healthy, I think Zach Moss will be a touchdown-dependent flex, and obviously Jonathan Taylor will be kind of a top 15, somewhere in that 10 to 15 range. Whereas if Moss were out, he'd be a top 10 guy for me.
Yep, it'll flip at some point. I mean, next week you might even prefer Moss while Taylor still gets up to speed.
Yes.
2 weeks from now, you probably start to prefer Taylor. Maybe that's the inflection point at which it flips. The other sneaky thing here is that the Colts won the game and they're 3-2 and tied for first place in the AFC South. And they've got an easy schedule the rest of the way. So this is a team that I think is going to be in a lot of games and is going to be playing to make the playoffs and putting a lot of miles on these running backs.
You know, it's interesting, and I bet what are the when we do our future segment, but this will be interesting. What the Colts odds are to win this division, which I bet go down if Richardson's going to miss a month. Yep. But Gardner Minshew's fine.
Right.
I don't think it's that big of a down. I don't think it's that big of a drop off. Exactly.
They lose some ceiling because Richardson just has more upside. But in terms of week to week, I don't think it changes much. And looking now at the odds on DraftKings, the Colts are plus 400 to win the division, which seems a little bit big to me.
Yeah.
The Jags are the best team in that division, but they got a much harder first place schedule.
The game is at Jacksonville next week. Colts at the Jags, so that will do a lot to determine the future of this division. Anthony Richardson, though, Connor, this was tough.
It is tough because now this is the second injury of his young career. And, I obviously had the concussion. Now he has the AC joint. He's taking hits. He's taking a lot of hits. He's taking big hits. And we knew that's going to be part of his game. I mean, the dude is about 6'5", 240-plus pounds.
Yeah.
But this is the nature of when you have a running quarterback and that second defender, gets the ball. It's simple as that. And this was a tough scene for Richardson. The explosive playability that he brings to the Colts offense is what they'll be missing. I don't know if Gardner Minshew brings that ability. So this is maybe a pain tolerance issue a week or two from now, and we'll see how much they rush him back. You got to be delicate. This is your franchise quarterback. Use the top 5 pick on. And I think the Colts will be smart and very, very careful.
You see this tweet right here from NFL Network. It says, sources, #Colts starting quarterback Anthony Richardson received an initial diagnosis of a grade 3 AC joint sprain, which would mean he'd miss a month or more. He has an MRI this morning to confirm. Either way, it's likely Gardner Minshew next week and moving forward. I saw other reports out there on Twitter saying that he wanted to get multiple opinions on his shoulder, but certainly sounds like the positives are, it doesn't sound like it's season ending, but it is his right shoulder. It is his throwing shoulder. So it does seem like it's unlikely that he starts this weekend against the Jaguars.
Yeah, particularly with that grade 3 potential diagnosis. I mean, their bye week isn't for another 5 weeks.
Right.
So he may be, that would probably be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, put him on short-term IR.
Gardner Minshew revenge game against the Jags.
Let's
go.
That's right.
#revenge game.
Gardner
Narrative
had them ready to
Street.
play.
Gardner Minshew coming back. Yes. Oh, my goodness.
If Nathaniel Hackett can have a revenge game, then Gardner Minshew can.
Anyone can have a revenge game.
Definitely gets one.
Absolutely.
Chiefs at Vikings.
Anyway, get better soon, Anthony.
Yes.
We miss you.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on his injury status going forward. Chiefs at Vikings. In a close one here, guys, Jordan Addison with the big day, caught 6 of his 9 targets for 64 yards with the touchdown, of course. And the bigger story on the wide receiver front here, Matthew, is Justin Jefferson. While he only caught 3 of his 6 targets for 28 yards, he leaves in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury that there's just not a lot of clarity on right now.
None whatsoever. Head coach Kevin O'Connell after the game saying, quote, "It's still very early to know the extent of Jefferson's hamstring injury. It was tough on him. He's the ultimate competitor." But here's the key of that quote, right? Still very early, sure, to know the extent of Jefferson's hamstring injury. Wait. Oh, so he does have a hamstring injury. I mean, like, to me, that's what I took away is it's like, because he came up, could it be cramping? Could it no. He's a speed wide receiver with a hamstring injury. And whatever it is, it's not good.
Yeah. So there were two red flags for me. One, the fact that Kevin O'Connell talked about consoling Justin Jefferson after the game. You don't console someone over a little tweak. Secondly, the fact that he wasn't out there for the Hail Mary play, which was a fair way after he'd been injured initially. That's another red flag that he couldn't jog down the field to try and get open for Hail Mary. So I would expect Jefferson's probably going to miss some time. The other tough thing for the Vikings is their bye week isn't until week 13. Yeah. So there's no respite coming up there. So I'd expect Jefferson to miss a bit of time, in which case Jordan Addison will be the beneficiary.
Yeah, I mean, what you can only hope, though, is that he's back in 2 weeks. So they're at Chicago this week. You certainly like that secondary, to go against that secondary if you have a Vikings player. But then they're home to the Niners. You don't love that. At Green Bay and then at Atlanta. So it gets a little bit tougher here the next four weeks, other than the game next week against the Bears. But to your point, yes, we'll talk about this more tomorrow. But certainly Jordan, in the short term, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, in that order for me, take a bump up in terms of the target share. TJ Hawkinson always going to be a part of it, especially because, Connor, it doesn't seem like this team can run the ball.
No, they can't. And you saw that with Alexander Mattison. Only 8 carries.
Yeah.
I mean, they're constantly playing a throw script too, which doesn't help, but they really are an efficient running team. I mean, you see the 10 total touches for Alexander Mattison, 7 touches for Cam Akers. Neither guy got anything going. Obviously Madison gets the touchdown, which spares him from a dreadful fantasy day, and we've just seen too many of those. But in terms of the down-by-down efficiency, it's not there for this group.
It isn't. And look, last week, Madison had 17 carries to Cam Akers, 5 carries. This week, Madison 8 carries, Akers 5 carries again. So that is, small sample, but trending towards Akers. And just Madison hasn't taken his opportunities. He had the fumble issue. He's had bad games. And we expect at some point this to become Akers.
I'll tell you this isn't something that shows up in the box score as well, but I just remember this play vividly. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was like a key, I want to say it was a second or third down, but they were trying to drive. They were down against Kansas City, and I think it might have been a third down, but it's either second or third down. But the point is that Madison was open in the flat for just a simple little touch pass. It was a really well-designed play. They let everyone kind of rush in, and so Cousins just floats it over there, hits him in the hands, and if he catches it, he runs for a first down. It's a really well-designed play. And he drops it. Yeah. Just like, just a play that a professional running back needs to make, and he didn't. And so, again, it just goes to sort of the focus issues that we've seen from Madison in terms of whether, to your point about just the fumbles and the drops. And it just, again, they traded for Cam Akers, a guy they know for a reason. It's a short week. We will see what happens against the Bears. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. But listen, you're nervous. You were nervous about Alexander Mattison early in the year. You're nervous when they drafted Cam Akers. You were thinking, okay, maybe he's held it off a little bit last week, but I think you can be back to being nervous about Cam Akers.
Be nervous.
Yes, be very afraid.
I want out of the Alexander Madison business.
Afraid.
If I had Alexander Madison, I would want out of the business. And, hey, he scored a touchdown. He played a lot of the snaps. I want out of the Alexander Madison business if I can get reasonable value.
On the other side of this one, Travis Kelce with the big day, 10 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. He also had the ankle injury right before halftime. Yeah. He returns in the second half. A bit of a surprise here, Jay, because it looked like it looked really bad for Kelce.
The Twitter doctors.
They were out and furious.
Achilles.
They basically wrote the man an obituary.
Commentary wasn't great either in the game itself, where everyone because the way Kelce went down, where he just kind of went limp. But it's like, all right,
non-contact injury. It's always scary.
Turf.
Yeah. But when you look at it, it didn't look that bad in real time, and he was walking around, and it seems like it's just a low ankle sprain.
The ankle.
Yes. Yeah, he twisted still happens.
Yeah, so, it's not a high ankle sprain. It looks like a low one. Obviously, he came back, he played, he caught the touchdown. 2 things. I'm going to go on a very slight, quick mini rant here, Stephen. Don't worry. But I'm just
be very afraid.
No, I want to give a shout out to my friend and my former colleague, Stefania Bell, who does such a great job. And if you ever follow her on Twitter, and I highly encourage you to follow Stefania, but she she's very well sourced, very well versed, and there are a few people on Twitter that I think do a really good job in terms of medical information. But the most of them are like, this looks like he's out, and you're just like, stop it. Stop it. What are you doing? Like, you don't have inside sources on the team. You don't know. Every patient is different. Every athlete responds to treatment differently. Every injury is differently. A high ankle sprain on you is very different than a high ankle sprain on me. Again, me being a bastion of health, and you
yes.
barely waddling in here. But I'm just saying the fact is that no, different injuries. Different injuries affect players differently, and exactly where it is. And until you examine that player, you won't know. And again, even if it was in the exact same place, an injury that happens to Saquon Barkley is different than an injury that happens to James Conner. Like, it just is.
Just like what happened to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Right.
He was done. He was done for all money, and then had the greatest second half anyone's ever had.
That's my point. And so I get these people are trying to like get engagement, but I would just ask anyone that is a reasonable fantasy manager, like, don't listen to them.
Yeah.
Don't listen.
Yeah.
Don't listen to them. It's all speculation, and it's all done for clicks, and it drives me crazy. And there's unfortunately very few of them that are very good at what they do. Stephania Bell being one of them.
Yep. So with this game, Kelce comes back. He's a monster. It seems like he'll probably be okay for Thursday, given the way that he closed the game. Don't have 100% confirmation on that, but no long-term concerns about Travis Kelce at this stage. To me, the takeaway
I will say, though, had it been a serious injury, the Swifties, much like the BTS Army, the Swifties would have there would have been grass in every stadium next week. There would have been grass in every single stadium next week. That's the most powerful voting block in all of America.
Yes,
Make no mistake.
Yes, it's the sleeping giant.
Yes.
I think the big takeaway again, though, is that 10 Kansas City players had receptions. Was it 11 or what?
It's just where we're at.
It's just such a democratic offense outside of Kelce. Isaiah Pacheco gets 16 carries again, gets in the end zone, has a fine day, but there's just no receiver that you want outside of potentially Rashee Rice.
Thank you very much. Scored a touchdown. That was my bold prediction on Fantasy Football Pregame, is that he would get in the end zone. I think he was third on the team in targets. Rashee Rice remains a priority stash for me on this Chiefs offense. Let's move on, though.
Yeah, our final game, Sunday Night Football.
Stop delaying everything.
I want us to go.
Quit getting off track.
I'm not here on Sundays. I like showing up and ruining the show.
Yeah.
That's why I arrived. All right, Cowboys, 49ers. This one, I wouldn't say didn't live up to the hype. It's just incredible how much of a powerhouse the Niners offense is right now. And we had the classic Big George Kittle game. We're good for one of these, I feel like, every now and then. He catches three of his 4 targets, 6-7 yards. But here's the thing, guys. All 3 were touchdowns in a game that Brock Purdy looked absolutely surgical, Jay.
He did. Do you believe now, Matthew, in Brock Purdy MVP? I was laughed off the set for 25-1, pointing him out. He's now plus 700 and a top 3 favorite with DraftKings. And I think he was the story here. He was a 10 out of 10 against a pretty good Dallas defense. George Kittle, the main beneficiary. Well, you didn't like Purdy's performance?
I thought Purdy was amazing. I don't like the bet, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that while he probably might be deserving, I mean, they're the best team in the NFL. The Niners are the best team in the NFL. My argument is that he does not, rightfully or wrongfully, my feeling is that the credit will go to Kyle Shanahan. He's a system quarterback. I mean, again, the more performances like this, you kind of like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what system you put Desmond Ridder in. Like, that ain't happening, right? Whatever. Pick your quarterback that you don't like. But I just feels like Chris McCaffrey has a better chance than Brock Purdy. I know MVP's a quarterback award.
I think last night was kind of an awakening in America around Brock Purdy, and the way that our friends Collinsworth and Tirico were talking about him on the broadcast, like he was this Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind type figure, the way he processes information, just his depth of target on these throws as well. Some of the throws to Ayuk, these are next level throws.
Oh, 100%.
And I think his pedigree can absolutely get to the level of Tua and Jalen Hurts. No one's going to think he's as good as Mahomes or Josh Allen, but they can think he's as good as Tua or Jalen Hurts, and those guys can absolutely win MVP as well.
Yeah, listen, he's an amazing story. He has played great. I mean, absolutely love the kid. There's no question about it. I agree with you. Some of the stuff to Ayuk, executed that play that they also ran in Detroit that we just showed, like the double flea flicker kind of thing, and they've run it in Iowa as well.
There's a copyright claim in civil court around that one. Just immediately Kyle Shanahan lifting.
But I'm with you. I just don't think he, rightfully or wrongfully, I just don't think he wins the award, just because I think the narrative around him. But I'm with you. Like, certainly last night was a big step in the right direction. Through the first 5 weeks of the season, let's talk fantasy now for a second. He's the 7th best quarterback in fantasy. Like, again, we thought he was kind of a mid-tier QB2, but he's had 2 or more touchdown passes in 8 of his 10 career starts. And then this schedule, they're on the road at Cleveland. That'll be a test. Cleveland's a very good defense coming off of the bye. At Minnesota, home to Cincinnati, a bye at Jacksonville. Like, it's not a schedule that, other than Cleveland, scares you. I think that if you manage to pick up Brock Purdy in your league and you've got Purdy and call it Josh Allen, call it Mahomes, somebody else, like if you had him as your, quote, backup quarterback and you need help somewhere else, trade the bigger name guy. Yep. Trade a Tua, trade a Josh Allen or Herbert, because I think Brock Purdy is good enough to be a legit fantasy starting quarterback the rest of the way.
Yep. He's never lost a game that he's finished, Brock Purdy. It's unbelievable. He's 13-0. He is a monster. Not a monster as the Dallas offense right now. Dak Prescott, again, really struggles against the Niners defense. Obviously, probably a career low moment for him in the playoffs. Maybe the second worst moment of his career last night, as he's 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 14-24. Just couldn't get anything going. And to me, it's a concern because other quarterbacks have moved the ball a little bit against San Francisco. Think about Matthew Stafford diced them up for a half back in week 2. So this is a red flag for me on Dak. Really, everyone suffered in the offense, CeeDee Lamb, but it really just starts with Dak and the game that he had.
I think for our fantasy purposes, it's very simple, though. You're still starting CeeDee Lamb. You're still starting Tony Pollard. You're still probably starting Jake Ferguson, and that's about it, just because tight end's so bad. You can't be starting Dak anymore. They are playing the Chargers this week, which is a great matchup. So, again, for our purposes, it doesn't matter. Dak will be good enough to get the ball to the people that we care about, and you can't be using Dak as a fantasy quarterback. One last thing from this game for me is just, shout out to Christian McCaffrey, our one true God. Once again, death taxes Christian McCaffrey in the end zone, 14th straight week with a touchdown as well. It was hilarious because my Twitter feed was like every single account I follow, like, whoa, 14th straight touchdown for Christian McCaffrey. They all were the same play, the same video over and over and over and over again. Every single sports book I follow, like, he cashes at whatever it was, whatever the odds were on their particular sports book, Of course, we're a DraftKings show, but I'm just saying, like, they're the only one I really follow. I've shadow banned the rest of them. But yeah,
the thing with McCaffrey is that was a bad game for Christian McCaffrey. That was like 2 out of 10 Christian McCaffrey games, 78 yards and a touchdown, still a monster.
Totally viable.
It's ridiculous. His 14 touchdown streak is the second longest NFL history.
It's good.
Yes, it is. That is good. Great analysis.
Yep.
You know what else is good? The toughest competition of the year is here. The biggest talents in men's rugby take the stage as 20 countries compete for 20 days of heart-pounding, hard-hitting action at the Rugby World Cup. Watch every match live on Peacock all the way through the final on October 28th, with games also available on CNBC. We're going to break. When we're back, Weekend Warriors.
Look at the muscles of the guy in green. Look at those muscles. Good Lord.
Rugby players are jacked.
He is. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.